Good morning, my fellow book lovers. And today, August 9th, thank you, Patrick Hansma from Patrick's Rare Books for saying that this morning. Today's National Book Lovers Day. Who knew? But if I can invent holidays, if today's National Book Lovers Day, tomorrow should be National Dust Jacket Appreciation Day. And Monday, because it's always a terrible day, should be Book of the Month Club Day. And we can go on for a couple of weeks on that one, but happy National Book Lovers Day. Who knew? We could do more, but I'd rather hear your comments and questions on things. I spoke to a lot of people this morning through Facebook, through Messenger, and a whole bunch of other gizmos. Give the show a call. And if you happen to be listening and you aren't someone I spoke to, give us a call anyway. The telephone number is 888 575 4394. That's 888 575 4394. We can, this week again, we have just under 100 new members for Vintage Rare and Antique Books. So I thank all of you for joining. Your questions, like in the last every week, not just last week and this week, but almost every week, there's at least a dozen people in joining this group that you should be on the phone right now because you had poignant and pertinent questions. You inherited books. You actually described, the relatives' flair and love for those books, and you want to know what they are. 888 575 4394 can get all that information right now. And if you have books you want to know what they're worth, we love those questions. There's a lot of places where people, they're annoyed by that question. They shouldn't be. We relish them and we'd love to hear from you. So at 11 o'clock, we're going to be joined by Max Roback for our monthly sessions of Book Talks with S&M. That's Steve and Max. Don't go reading into it. For those who don't know Max, let me tell you about Max and what we have been doing in the several months since we have established a business rapport, so to speak. We've always kind of known of each other. Max has a strong background as a rare bookie. He was mentored for a decade, by over a decade, by Robert Hittell of Hittell Books in Fort Lauderdale. Robert is a long time from father to son rare book business, and Max was mentored by one of the best in the South Florida bookselling, in the history of bookselling in South Florida. He was a teacher in high school, but made the decision, and it's a pretty tough decision to make if it doesn't work right, but it worked out perfectly, to become a full-time rare bookie. And for the last 10 years, he has come up with a formula that I'm going to tell you. I'm not saying the formula can't be copied, but if you don't have the pieces that he has in this area, you can't do it, He has, I'm not giving away trade secrets here. He has successfully hooked up with a well-known charitable organization, and I have worked with charitable organizations probably after the first few years that I was in the business because it bothered me in a way when a library sold a really rare book and didn't get the true proceeds for it. So, a lot of people wanted to perform second religious operations on me for it, but somebody's got to do it, and Max is doing a phenomenal job of it. And as I say, it's in a unique niche. Um, Max and I have been working together on what you all in the audience know is my warehouse inventory. He's done very well for us over the last few months, and it continues with his online auctions and other methods of sale. Just a little sidebar on that. We had 4 cartons, milk cartons of books. I completely forgot I had them on martial arts, paperbacks, hardcovers, things like that. He went through all 4 boxes in a 2-day auction. For us, and let me say this, well, Max has a unique business model that I am totally impressed with. for us at age 75 and practicing what I preach on the show, and that is don't leave a mess for whoever is going to get the things you can't take with you, meaning, a whole bunch of books and other things like that. Um, we're in a unique situation. The books we send to Max are what everybody would call bread and butter books. Giving them a price range more in the 50 to $200 range, with a few going up to 2 or 300, maybe a little more, but we don't go over 500. That much I know. So, these are the bread and butter books that sell well at the right price. Now, you can have the books at the right price at a show, and, these are not retail prices, but we don't expect retail, but the ratio of what Max delivers to the retail is worth it, okay? Um, most of the books, and again, it's our unique situation. We've got 5,000 books that are ours in the warehouse. Most of them were like we had to buy the whole library. We sold the cherries. There's still some really good books there. Maybe some of them were at a show 10 years ago. Maybe some were at a show last year, but they're all kind of very good books. They're not duds by any means. So personally, at this point in time, let's say we had $100 book. And you can laugh when I say this, maybe, but let's say Max got $30 for it, $40. I'm thrilled with that because books like that, and again, a unique situation to us, if we bought those books, we probably figured, a dollar or two a book for those books based on what else was in the library that accounted for a higher price per book. But if you add up a dollar or two per book and being honest about it, some of them have been in storage for a while. Doesn't mean the title's a bitch. We've rotated things around. So there might be another $2 or $3 cost in terms of what we've had storage on. I mean, I've had that warehouse for 15 years. Could have bought a condo. No, not a condo. Never a condo. Um, so we're still making money on it. And again, it's time to be selling. So this is not a situation for every single person that's listening out there, but I guarantee you that I'll say I'm a little different than most because I've been doing it so long, but 20% of you out there probably have that kind of inventory where you've had it for a while. Doesn't mean the books are bad. There were several years, and I'll throw this in just as a sidebar. There were several years that I was doing more billing hours in appraisals than, sales. So, it works out for us. If you have a similar situation, then I would tell you when Max is on the show later, give us a call, 888-575-4394, and let's talk about what you have. You can also use that phone number if you have a book business. You're new, you're old, you're established. Let the world know. This radio program has a tremendous reach. I wish we had more callers, but the show goes out to a live audience now from 10 to 12. This afternoon, it's picked up from 4 to 6. On Sunday, replays from 8 to 10 a.m. and 3 to 5 p.m. And on Monday, it plays from 1 to 3 a.m. We have a we were both the producers, Captain Hook and myself, we were both surprised sometime in the last year and times before that, when we look at the statistics as to who's listening to the show on replay, and more so where they're from. So we have listeners in Russia, we have listeners in Germany, Italy, England, Australia, and I'm going to mention New Zealand now for a reason, just in case. And I apologize that I could not send you a link today. Time yesterday just got destroyed. But a listener in New Zealand messaged me 2 nights ago that she had a copy of the Christmas Carol, and it seemed to be a first edition. Um, so let me tell you, she actually said it was the first American edition. But let me give you an example of a citation. I'm going to read a citation describing Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. But before I do, I just want to, for those who will see this on YouTube when we play it on WDBF Radio's YouTube channel, this is a reading from Ahern's A Guide to Collected Values. While the prices in here are not accurate, the information is, and I always say this with a caveat, um, some from time to time, somebody discovers a new point in a book or finds out an old one isn't that might have points. Doesn't list every book. There's 15,000 books listed, but I'll tell you, based on the experience of the person that wrote them, and that's Alan and Patricia Ahern, it's 15,000 books that have caught their eye to the point that they've been bought, sold, talked about for ages. Literature goes in and out of vogue, but the nonfiction stays pretty solid, and your classic writers like Dickens and such always go up. We also had a caller with some Jane Austen books. We'll tell you about that too. Actually, a listener, but they wrote, not called. So Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. London, 1843. We're going to get to the American edition as we read forward. But when you're looking at a Dickens book, it can get complicated. So, what do you need to have to know that your first edition of A Christmas Carol is the true first edition? Well, it's got to say London, 1843. It's got to have 4 colored plates and 4 woodcuts by John Leech. Then the cloth that it's bound in must be brown cloth. There doesn't seem to be, here's a complication in points. There doesn't seem to be a final agreement on the first issue and would suggest some detailed research in any copy in original cloth with 1843 or 44 on the title page. That's amazing. In Boutell's, H.S. Boutell wrote a book on how to identify first editions and their publishers, and it was one of the early ones written on the subject. In it, and I've cited this as an example, and this is the second one that I've seen that talks about cloth color. What they were talking about in Boutell's was who was the poet, Dylan Thomas poem from the mid 1900s. They don't know what color cloth the original first edition was bound in. And if I remember right, it was yellow, blue, green, or red. Yellow, blue, green, red, 4 colors. You had to own all 4 copies to know that one of those was the first edition. So it looks like you got the same what color is the cloth question disagreement here. Okay. The price is, well, we're not going to go in that, but back then was 3,500 to 20 grand, depending on issues and, of course, condition, with many believing the green end papers are first. In spite of this comment, most seem to believe the first is dated 1843. Next point, stave 1, not stave 1 written out on first text page with red and blue lettered title page and yellow end papers, okay? Second issue, but the same green end papers. A third issue with 1844 on the title page in yellow end papers. Keeps going. Fourth issue was stave 1 in words. And now we're getting to the American edition. So if you're in New Zealand and you're catching this live or on replay, what time would it be in New Zealand now? Afternoon, or early morning. One of the two. Depends on which way you're flying. Okay, so Philadelphia, 1844. First American edition, yellow cloth. Okay, then they have other editions. There's the Arthur Rackham edition, which is one of 100 signed, and the limited editions clubs and all of those. So let me tell you, well, to the untrained eye and ear, all of that stuff that I just rambled off sounds complicated. It is, and it can get more complicated. Points, your vocabulary, knowing how to properly describe things is very important in the book business. Points, you have to learn how to cipher through those. So going back, we got sidetracked there. I was talking about Max before, and later in the show, who'll join us. Auctions I'm talking about national, worldwide auctions this week. Um, were slow, with an LOL attached. Nothing sold for over $200,000 in the top 25 lots at the various auctions. It's summertime, and the book selling is lousy. That is what I am hearing from a lot of people, and that's been consistent throughout most summers. So after 58 years, as a rare bookie and using the results and labor involved for sales, including the show, going to shows and packing them in and out, and, all of that, all this involvement in shipping books and packing books. I've joked about this a lot of times when we would say, oh, I should have specialized in ladies' handbags, or I should have specialized in, whatever art. Actually, the most serious one was art. If my mentor and I were talking about this a while ago, had we gotten into art the way we got into books, well, I think we'd both be driving Lambos now, but that's another story. So what I'm saying in hypothetics, though, is I should have specialized in ephemera. My L4 and L5 would be in much better condition, as well as all kinds of other things. The reason I'm saying it, I've been having a blast with ephemera. It's not that I haven't sold ephemera before, but I gotta say, I've never had it in the quantity that we have found it in from this estate. I'm actually going to save a bunch of it for the show. Even though we had some of it at last year's show, I picked up twice as much between when the show ended and, now. So it should be a very good show, and it's going to be very good for many reasons, but I think my back will thank me the most because ephemera is not that heavy. So unless we acquire a library of very rare, very easily saleable books, next year the booth is going to be very ephemeral in nature. And let me tell you something based on this motto. The last books you buy are usually the first books you sell at book shows, antiquarian book fairs. There's a lot of people that are laughing at this right now that have done shows, and it kind of happens to be a spiritual truth. It would be my luck that I walk into a house and I find some kind of, Jane Austen 17 volume set along with a few others that is just so desirable you can't say no. And that wouldn't surprise me at all. But for right now, it looks like we're going to be doing ephemera for a while. I've never had more fun going through this collection, and finding things to research. You get a quantity of books to research. It's one at a time, carry, move the box, this and that. You want to research 50 ephemeral items, you don't even have to move anything. It's just so much fun. And we've been finding a lot of very interesting things. And when I say rare, realize this. And if you learn anything from this show today, it's probably the most important thing you can learn if you're new. Rare is not always expensive. Rare doesn't have to be expensive. Some of this stuff is really rare. It's not that expensive, but it's fun. How about a presidential ballot when the prohibition person was on the party and somebody else from Texas? This thing looks so fragile. I'm surprised it survived today. We'll be back with more stuff and your phone calls after these commercial words. An enjoyable morning wherever you are this Saturday on National Book Lovers Day. If you're at an estate sale or a garage sale, I hope you find something rare, wonderful, interesting, and totally underpriced. We're going to start this segment out with a trivia contest question. So, as we say, if we had a drum roll, please, it's trivia contest time. 888-575-4394 is the number. That's 888-575-4394. You can call to answer the trivia contest question. Tell us about your book business. Or if you're one of the people that just joined the group or you've been listening for a while and you have a question, give us a call. Don't be shy. So here is the question, and it's a simple one. If you know the answer. It's what Willie Mosconi said when I saw him run, what was it, 250 balls of straight pool. What does A period E period G stand for? What is the abbreviation AEG stand for? Okay, one of the things that we haven't done in a while is recommend some things to the beginner. If you are new and this in this field, and I'm saying this, if you're on a budget, or if you just want to keep the expenses down for a while until you see what's going on, you are, this is going to sound dumb, but you are your knowledge in this business. You know what you know. You're going to learn like from secondhand, knowledge, so to speak. You're going to be reading about it. You're going to be learning from other people and such. In order to do so, you need some reference books, okay? Let's start it out with you only have a budget for one book. I showed this book earlier, but I'm going to show it and verbalize about it again. This is called Collected Books by Alan and Patricia Ahern. It's the Guide to Values. The edition that I use because it's handy and also just because it's sentimental, I got this copy from a editor at Doubleday, even though it was a Putnam publication, who Alan and Patricia were in correspondence with about a bunch of book business. Matter of fact, I'll read the letter. But this book is the one-stop shop for you on a budget. You can get to 2000, 2008. I don't remember exactly the years they came out. But just for fun, I never read this letter on the air. So let me give you it was written 4/30/1991. Wow. It was written to a Mr. Wheel. Gordon Wheel was well known in the South Florida area and was a publisher at Doubleday. Did a lot of projects with Isaac Bashevis Singer and others. And this is the way it goes. This is Alan Ahern writing. Dear Mr. Wheel, we would be very happy to have you put together a draft checklist on Singer and McDonald. Isaac Bashevis, Singer and McDonald. And look, hand corrections. um, we've been too frantic to get to so many of the authors who should have a guide done on them, but hopefully it will catch up in the next few months. Here, I'm going to take a second. I'm not losing you on the microphone, but I'm going to show you something. Wow. It's time to dust off the top of that shelf. This series, this was an author price guide series that Alan and Patricia Ahern came out with. It came out in hardcover. It came out in a loose book, loose leaf book, no, format, and you could not wait until the next issues came out. Everybody had them. Now, of course, they're obsolete, and unfortunately, um, well, they're not obsolete. The information is still very credible. It's just the prices aren't. But it's, if you see them, that kind of stuff, it's handy reference. So Did I finish reading the letter? What did I just, oh my goodness. That was, oh, well, you took it. Okay, thank you. So, okay, we'll catch up in a few months. I'm including a sample of the APGs, which is the author price guide. We want to be able to identify first editions and give the quantity published in the guides. The McDonald bibliography, although very good, doesn't really tell you if the books state, in quotes, first edition or not. On McDonald, we would put in the first paperback edition if it was first, and then the first hardback, UK or US, and then the other hardback. That should be enough unless Mysterious Press did one with a new intro or revised. No need to mention first paperbacks if they were after the hardbacks, unless the title changed. Science fiction one did. Many thanks for your help. All our best, Alan Ahern. Now, I don't think I've read that letter, but I didn't remember the contents. And it's funny that we're talking about points and you get a chance to actually hear the authors that are writing these price guides about the problems. It's not so easy to just say John D. McDonald, boom, 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 boom. Who agrees with it, who doesn't agree with it. Some of it was very cut and dry, but other ones, there's quite a bit of bibliographic research in it. So the trivia contest question is, what does AEG stand for? And the telephone number is 888-575-4394. And the prize is a fun one, usable by anybody, $25 in US postage. Correct me if I'm wrong, but what's a letter up to today? 78 cents, 74 cents, something like that. And I seem to remember reading something about a 2-ounce letter was going up to $1.29. So it's a good prize today. It's hard to pick prizes because people, I mean, I think I'm putting out a good book, but there's somebody that's not quite interested in it. Who snatched my pen? There's nobody here. What did I just do with my pen? That's okay. We always have pens. And by the way, they now have these at the dollar stores, and I love them. Oh, man, that gel pen is just amazing. So, anyway, what we were going to talk about is reference books that you want to have on your shelf. Well, I mentioned Patricia and Alan Ahern's book, and I'll tell you why. They list about 15,000 titles with their points. Again, you're ignoring the prices. So they list 15,000 titles with their points. In addition, they have a glossary of terms. There's a bibliography. There's a section on grading and other things. So while the prices, again, are not accurate, everything else in the book is. And I'm pretty sure with shipping, you could probably get that book for under 20 bucks. If you look at Adall or, wherever you Adall, Biblio, Abe. For those of you who are new, let me tell you something else. If you are researching books, and you go to Abe or Biblio, and that's the only two places you're going, and you got to go to them one at a time, right? Add this to sites that you want to go to. Addall.com. That's ADDALL.com. Addall.com, when you first go on it, you're going to see the form. Well, the first form that comes up gives you a choice. New books or used books. Click on used books. Next form that comes up, as you scroll down it, you're going to see a thumbtack notice, a peg notice. It will list some 50 different sites. Peg every one of them, whether you think you need it or not. You never know what you're going to find the next day in a French book or something. So click all of them, and that way it will always bring you back all the information. And what's good about that? It lists everything that Abe lists. It lists everything that Biblio lists. It lists everything, Amazon Marketplace and wherever else the book was being listed in one place, including UK and French sites. So AddAll.com is a site that you definitely want to use. And if you're going to Abe and Biblio, nothing wrong with that. But if you go to AddAll.com, you're going to get it all in one shot. You don't have to keep, back paging and all. Well, Edie just said it's her favorite. And in a way, it is mine too. But to me, and again, this is something with years in the field. There are some books that I would prefer to look up on Via Libri, Vialibri, vialibri.net. Those are usually more antiquarian or better books. Not to say you can't find anything and everything on Via Libri, but if you're looking for more serious, higher end books, go there. That way you don't have to go through all the chafe to get to the cream, so to speak. There's all kinds of other sites. The one site that you may not know about, especially if you're new, and I suggest you take a note on this, it's called rarebookhub.com. There's a free newsletter at rarebookhub.com that I highly suggest that you subscribe to. That's free. And I love the stories and everything in it is just phenomenal. The service that they provide that you subscribe to by payment is this. You can get it by the month, or by the year. And I guess there's other programs that I haven't kept up with that are out there now. Comes out to $1 a day or more in most cases. But if you are in this situation like a lot of people are, that when they join the group, they tell us, we inherited a shelf full, a room full, a multi-generational library. If in those books, in those particular things that I just mentioned, you see that there are really nice, to even to your to your untrained eye, with a caveat, they're beautiful. They're leather bound. The person that left them to you was a known collector to you all, but you didn't pay much attention to it. That is the time that you want to, at least for a month, depending on how many, well, it doesn't matter how many books are there. You subscribe to Rare Book Hub and you go through that library. Rare Book Hub differentiates from the others in a very huge way. Rare Book Hub is actual auction prices. People sat in an auction room or online and bid for that item, which means there was an actual willing buyer, willing seller. Not sure they both knew what they were doing, but that's the money that was paid for that book. You need to know auction prices. The difference between everything else, whatever you find on AddAll, A, Biblio, all of that, the big difference is this. Those are dealer asking prices. So when we come back, I'm going to tell you the pros and cons of dealer asking prices. The sooner you realize dealer asking prices and how to interpret them. There are clues. Even if you go to AddAll, you see 90 different dealers, hundreds of dealers, but you're looking at one book, and let's say there's a lot of dealers that have copies of that book. Hopefully, you would want less, but we'll explain how you can sort out these prices that are way too high, way too low. And there's clues in all the listings if you know what to look for. And on that note, I know to look at the clock and say, it's time to go to break. Man, is it raining out there today? Thank God it was so hot this week. We'll be back after these commercial words. As we said earlier, it's National Book Lovers Day. Who knew? But thanks for the notice, Patrick Hamsna of patricksrarebooks.com. If you have any antiquarian, medical, or really antiquarian religious tomes, Dr. Patrick Hamsner is a one-stop shop expert on those subjects. He actually is by day and sometimes at night a forensic pathologist and has authored several novels to read, which made great reads. The Grade Below is one title that makes that kind of great read. So thank you for everything that you do in the book world, Patrick and Jenny Hams of patricksrarebooks.com. They are co-administrators with us all at Vintage Rare and Antique Books, and thank you to everybody for your efforts in making us the number one group to talk book talk. Got an answer to the trivia question? 888-575-4394. That's 888-575-4394. The prize is $25 in usable postage stamps. The trivia question is, what does the abbreviation AEG, A period, E period, G period, what does that stand for in the listing of a book? We'll give you the answer to that question just before we go to break and pick up with Max, if you don't call in first. And if you don't want to call in and answer the question, call in for another reason. Tell us what you're doing in the book business. Tell us about the books you inherited that you can't figure out the value of. And by the time the call's over, we have never left anybody unsatisfied with that call. So now what we were talking about before was using add all with an understanding of how it kind of works. First and foremost, you have to remember that these are dealer asking prices. So the first thing you have to know is, did the book sell at all? Did the book sell for the price that they were asking for it? And if the book sold, but it sold to a dealer, you have to figure that there was a 20% dealer discount on that book. So, if it's $1,000 book, it becomes an $800 book that the actual money transferred in. Those are just some loose thoughts. Let's get very specific about something, some of the things. Let's say you researched a book, whatever the book is, man, no title necessary, but you researched the book and it came up, it'll tell you at the top heading, we found 50 copies of this book listed, and boom, boom, there they are. Okay. Who listed the book? You will know that because it'll say Amazon Marketplace, this dealer's name, wherever that book's was listed, you will know. Okay. So let's say of these 50 copies, okay, as you're scrolling, you're going to see that maybe 3 or 4 of the copies, and they might even have different price points on them, were listed by the same dealer, okay? So now we're talking about there's actually 45 copies that are available, and you're going to see price range variations. We'll cover that in a second. Dealer listing. Knowing who the dealer is can be very important. Sometimes dealers will list their letters of the associations that they belong to after that name. Why is that good for the buyer? Because if it's a legitimate organization, you got to check that one out too. If it's a legitimate organization, it means that those dealers were vetted by a group of their peers before they went into the organ or admitted into the organization. Per se, I'm a member of FABA, Florida Antiquarian Book Dealers Association. In order to get in, I had to have a sponsor and prove that, I was in the book business and kind of knew my stuff. Worked, no problem. It's easy to do. It's not hard to join these associations. You just need to, you can go to a book fair and meet people at the book fair that are exhibitors, get friendly with them and say, hey, I want to join this group. How do I get in? And if you have a good rapport with that dealer and they know you or, get to know you, you could pretty much so count on a sponsorship in that sense. If you have the goods, they're ready to take you in. So that means if you see letters after their name, it means they were vetted by a group of their peers. If you don't see letters after their names, it doesn't mean they're bad. It doesn't mean they're good. You got to figure that one out. Okay, so now we're at 45 copies online. I'm going to say this is a general rule of thumb. There's always exceptions. No matter what the book, there's going to be some, and I'm using a very specific word here, idiot that's going to put a stupid price on the book. Okay? I mean, a dumb price. And I'll use an example, but I won't mention who it is. Look up, I had to look up some Chagall books a couple of months ago. And I also had to look up one or two others. I think it was a Moreau and somebody else. And I looked them up and I had an idea what the book is worth. I mean, we all know Jerusalem Windows, it retails at 1,000. That's the price it used to wholesale at, but that's another story in itself. And so we know what the price is on that book. And I lost my train of thought. Okay, so you got the highest prices. When I looked up those books, I knew that the retail on one of them was $1,000. I knew on another one it was 700 or 800. You look at the listings that were the top listings in that thing, and that that's something I just realized I'm not near the screen. Sorry about that. Um, that's a problem that you have to sort through. But those people will pop up all the time if you have good books because they have the good books, but they're crazy, they're priced crazy. So you need to interpret the prices in the sense of take out those high prices that are obvious, knock them out. So let's say, there's three or four of those. So now you're down to like 41 or so copies of this book. Throw out the bottom end. What has to match to start with your book is that the description of condition is similar, with hopefully yours being in better condition. So now we're in the middle, and let's say for argument's sake, this book was a realistic book priced between 175 and 250. Now, that's $75 is a stretch, but in a book like that, it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean anything. It means that that's the market price that they think they could get for it versus another dealer who has a different set of clientele, and then how much do they have into it and all those other things. But that's where you want to start getting your prices from, in that middle range of the reputable known dealers. Okay. So let's say here's another trick. Let's say, for argument's sake, your copy is really nice and it's equal to, let's say, a copy that was listed as very good plus, and yours is just as good, very good plus. And the price on that book was, let's say, $175. You ask yourself the question, how much do you have into that? Most of us, let's be real about it. We're buying those books at estate sales and garage sales, hopefully on the hunt, and we got a couple of bucks into it. Okay, if you're paying real money, well, that's a different story. So how much would you list that book for? I will tell you that for me, if I had a couple of bucks into a book and somebody had it in that price range of 175 to 250, and my copy was just as good as the 175 or the 250 book because both of those were in equal condition, but they had different markets and clients. That's the dealer game. Um, I would underprice all of them. I'd put it at 150. I'd put it at 125. I'd put it at 150 with postage. Be the lowest price on a good book, and you're bound to sell it. I mean, that's the rule of thumb. When you see dealers that um, have been like the top name dealers, the big timers in New York, in London, I'm not going to mention names, but you all know who they are. You're not going to get their prices because you don't have their clients. You might get lucky. I'm not saying you can't shoot and holler fish and get lucky, but generally speaking, it's not going to happen. So don't try and emulate the top price unless, I mean, it's something so exclusively rare that you can do it. May you have that problem. So what else on those? You're throwing out the top, you're throwing out the bottom. Who listed the book? What's the realistic price range in the middle of it all? When you start getting down to where you find one, two, three, four, five copies, then you need to do more research, unless, of course, you see that one of these dealers listing it is reputable, well known, maybe a specialist in that area. And then again, do you want to keep it or sell it? If you want to keep it, be the highest priced. If you want to sell it, that's another story. And on that note, we got about 3 minutes left. So I'm throwing out a challenge to a bunch of people that have made this comment on their application to Vintage Rare and Antique Books. One or two of them, one of them for sure, made the comment this week, or it wouldn't be so fresh in my mind. I want to know what my books are worth, but I don't want to sell them. Okay, how many times have we heard that? Many. But the one thing that we very rarely hear, for a lot of reasons, but let's just say you found out you're the ultimate hoarder, and you found out that one of your books is worth thousands of dollars. What are you gonna do? Who are you gonna call? What are you gonna do more so? That's a challenge that if anybody that listens to this program or is in the group, and makes comments on it, I'd love to know. If you're the ultimate book hoarder all your life, but suddenly somebody, was in your house by accident, you discovered it. You didn't even look it up. Someone came in and told you. What would you do? What would you do? That's the question. If you're smart, and I mean this sincerely, I'm not calling you stupid by not doing it, but if you're smart, you'd sell it. One of the worst and best things that can happen in the book world, it's not that bad. In a casino, it's really bad. Walk into a casino and win a big jackpot. All right, bye bye. But walk into an estate sale, your first time, find a really great book, sell it. Don't start hoarding. I'm telling you, sell it. It's not, it's very easy to fill up a house with hoarded books. Doesn't mean that they are good. And it's very easy to start losing this space in your house to books that aren't worth anything. Don't hoard books. One of these days we've got to replay um, Patrick Hamsmer's interview the first time we had him on the show. Besides being a doctor and into medical books, he gave one of the best theological discussions on hoarding books. We'll be back with Max after these commercial words.